Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So for today's video, I'm going to be discussing all of the books that I read in the month of July, as well as the books that I want to read in the month of August. So let's start with some statistics. In the month of July, I read 5 books. I read 2,009 pages, 4 romances, 1 thriller, and the average rating was a 3.85. So, starting out with the first book that I read in the month of July, we have Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is the second book in the Chestnut Spring series, if you didn't know, and oh my god. When I tell you, I am in love with this book. This is probably one of my new favorite books of all time. This is Cade and Willa's book. Cade is Rhett's brother, and Willa is Summer's best friend from the first book. Willa is Cade's son's nanny, so obviously there's a bit of forced proximity there if she is babysitting his child. So that's basically all I can give you about this book, but wow, I remember talking about this book and saying, I think it was my last video, and I was saying that Flawless was better than this. And I just finished editing that video yesterday and literally put in blurbs, I was like, I lied. Heartless is better in my opinion now. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. Because after I finished this, I was like, I still have like that thing for Flawless, like I'm still obsessed with it. Whereas I don't know about Heartless. And now I just shut all of that down. Like, no. Quiet. No. Heartless is so much better. I've said this before and I'll say it again. I need a Harvey book. I need Harvey's book. Please, I'm begging. Miss Elsie Silver. I need his backstory. I need everything that happened with her mom. I need everything. So I am begging for a Harvey book, but if you couldn't tell, she's a 5 out of 5, okay? Hands down, one of my favorite books of all time now. So she doesn't need any more explaining. Next, I read Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan, and this was actually a DNF. I have some words to say about this book. I know many of you probably watched Destiny Sidwell, and as you saw probably, she was ranting about this book. She gave it a 6 out of 5. This was like one of her favorite new books, and she loved it. So I was going into it thinking probably the same. So I got about like 50 pages in, and I was like, okay, this is like okay, but like, let's pick up the pace. I got 100 pages in, and I was like, this is like a clock. This is like my watch, right? I'm like, let's go. What's going on here? And I soon got over halfway. I believe I was at 209 and I was bored out of my mind. This is where I was. I had this much left, over halfway, meaning that I'm still gonna rate it and I'm still gonna count it as a book that I read because I got over halfway. So I'm giving it a 2.5. Even though I didn't finish it, I'm still gonna rate it and say that I read it because I read over 50% of it. So that's my rating for Summer Romance. I don't really have anything else to say about it. It was boring. I was really bored most of the time. There wasn't much to it. We were debating with divorce. Like, we were talking about divorce and how long we were getting kids for. It didn't seem much of a romance, but more of like a coming of age fiction, literary fiction type. I don't know. I was bored. I didn't really enjoy it. It really wasn't romance because we weren't getting anything. We got little snippets, and then when we did, it wouldn't go anywhere else. It would just stop. And it seems like everything just kept repeating itself. Like, we were just skipping time periods, and it was like something happened, and then it was like something like a little bit big, and then we just went to the next day and didn't talk about it, and like it was not great. So I'm giving it a 2.5. Again, I DNF'd it, so didn't even finish it, wasn't interested in finishing it. I was already struggling, and I didn't like it. So 2.5 DNF though. Next up, I read The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager, and when I tell you, this book had me on the edge of my seat. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Wait. First of all, I also wanted to mention that Summer Romance was my first DNF of the entire year. Can I please get a round of applause that we lasted until July to get our first DNF? Let me hear it. Thank you. Anyway, I was on the edge of my seat literally the entire time reading this. There was points that I was like, okay, this is just getting very repetitive because the book takes place along like a 1 week period. Like, it feels like it's a month that you're there, but it's only like a week that this takes place. And I didn't realize that until halfway through the book. And I was like, oh, so this happened yesterday, not 2 weeks ago, you know? But it was really good. I'm gonna rate it a 3.75. Here is why. I have an emotional attachment to The Silent Patient because I read this very early on in like my reading journey, and I read it wrong. I forgot how I read it wrong. Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but it had to do with like the timelines. Like I was really confused about the timelines because there's like 2 timelines going on. So I was really confused about those, and I think that's why the end was even more shocking, because I didn't really understand the timelines at the time. But still a 5-star read to this day. And The House Across the Lake just did not give that. And I think that's because, I think I mentioned this in my other video, that this is more of like a thriller with like killing and murder, and it's a murder mystery, whereas this is more psychological thriller, and I think I like these much better. So it's not that this book is bad that I'm giving it 3.75, because 3.75 isn't even that bad. It's actually really good, but I think I have more of a liking to psychological thrillers rather than murder mysteries. But either way, this book was absolutely fantastic. I 100% recommend this if you are a thriller reader. I know I'm a little late because I know this was like very popular a while ago, and I actually bought it when it got popular, but I just never read it, and then I decided to pick it up. So it's still fantastic, still a great book. I really don't have any complaints about this, I'm not gonna lie. I just think it was very repetitive at points, and there was like nothing going on at times, and then right as there was nothing going on, something big happened. So that's why I'm not like too picky about that, because I think it was leading up to it. It just didn't give me the same feeling that The Silent Patient did. That is why it's a 3.75. So yeah. Next up, I read Powerless by Elsie Silver. This is the 3rd book in the Chestnut Spring series. I'm gonna be completely honest, this was kind of a flop for me, I'm not gonna lie. I still love the series, and I'm obviously going to continue to read the series, but I don't know, this one is Jasper and Sloane, and I don't know, it just fell short for me. I said this before and I'm gonna say it again. I don't know what book this was that I talked about it, but I'm gonna say it for this one, that Elsie Silver was trying to write Jasper as a Cade. If you know Cade from Heartless by Elsie Silver, which is the one before this that I talked about in the beginning, Cade is a very grumpy, older, he's sarcastic, you know, he's like all this type, and he's only like soft and cuddly to Willa. Whereas Jasper is the complete opposite. He's a sweet guy, he's a nice heart, but I think she was trying to write him at points like a Cade, like grumpy and sarcastic and mean, but that's not who he is. And I think she tried to switch up his personality in this, or like he didn't know what was going on. I don't know, I really don't know, but it just didn't hit the same as Flawless and Heartless did. So I'm giving it a 4 stars. I would rate it lower if it wasn't in the Chestnut Spring series though. It wasn't my favorite in the series, definitely my least favorite so far, but I liked the female main character. I liked Sloane, and Jasper was like a softie, but also at points wasn't, which didn't really make sense to me. I think you should stick with one characteristic and stay with it, and not like go back and forth between the two. Oh, I think it was the rule book. I think I said that about the rule book by Sarah Adams. It was both of the male main characters were like softies, but then trying to be like rude and stuff like at the same time, and it just didn't make sense, you know. Whereas Cade from Heartless, he stuck with it the entire time. Same thing with Red. I think both of those male main characters were perfect, and in this one Jasper just fell short. He was supposed to be a fun, lighthearted, funny guy, but then at points he was like mean and rude, and it just didn't really make any sense, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna give it a 4 stars. I'm still, again, going to finish the series, of course, but this one just fell flat. Didn't love it. Last but not least, we have Happy Place by Emily Henry. This was the last book that I read in the month of July. I don't really have many thoughts on this book. It took me a while to read, actually. I think it took me like maybe a week and like 1 day. It took me like 8 days to read this book, but I was also in Florida when I was reading it, so there was like a lot of stuff going on, so like I didn't always have time to read, so that's probably why. But this book is very deep. It has so much more meaning than just what it's perceived as. It's just perceived as a summer book that you read on the beach, and it's like a fun, lighthearted book, but it really isn't. This has so much meaning to it, and it's so deep that I didn't realize it. And I know a lot of people said that also about Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, and they're like crying and stuff over this book. And I think that's very similar to Happy Place by Emily Henry. This is also my first Emily Henry book, so I don't really have experience with her writing. It was a great like first impression of Emily Henry for me, and I will 100% be reading more of her books, but this just was a great book. And I think the characters all had like a development to them, like they had a purpose and they had their own characteristics. It wasn't like they were all like the same. I really enjoyed this book, but it wasn't a 5 stars. It didn't give me the 5-star feeling. It was fantastic though, and this is a great beach read, but it's just more than a beach read if you think about it. It is just so deep, and the friendship in here is amazing. The relationships are fantastic, and the male main character has my entire heart. I love Win so unbelievably much, and that is all I have to say about this book. I 100% recommend this book as a beach, but also like a deep, meaningful read. If you need even to cry, I feel like this book is a good crying book as well. But if you need a good cry, if you need a deep, emotional feeling book, pick up Happy Place by Emily Henry. I 100% recommend this book with all of my heart. I think I'm gonna give it a 4.25, maybe a 4.5. I don't know, one of the two. It's gonna be up there. Not exactly sure yet since I just finished it like 2 days ago. So that is going to be it for the wrap up part of this video. Now we're going to move in to the TBR part of this video. I haven't done one of these types of videos in a while where I do my wrap up and my TBR, because I don't really have TBRs most of the time, but I do this month. So let's get right into it. So the first book that I really want to read in the month of August is Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I actually already read this, so I'm going to be rereading it, but I'm gonna be completely honest, I completely forgot most of the stuff that happened in this book. I just remember that it was a more banterful, is that a word, banterful? It's more banterful type of Hunger Games, if you will. So it's kind of very similar to the Hunger Games, but with more banter, more romance to it, and honestly just better in general. I think this is much better than the Hunger Games in my opinion. This is the first book on my TBR. I'm going to be rereading it, and I actually started this a little while ago with Mads. We were gonna reread it together, and then we just stopped. So I think it's because she got into a reading slump, so we just stopped reading it together, and then I stopped reading it all together. So I definitely want to get back into it so that I can read Powerful, which is the next book on my TBR, and then Reckless, which just came out not too long ago, which I'm so excited to read because everybody's saying that it's fantastic. I'm so excited to read that. So yeah, these are the first 2 books on my TBR. Next book on my TBR is none other than Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I have not read an Abby Jimenez book yet, but I do have the Happy Ever After playlist by her, which I've been dying to pick up and read, but haven't. Don't ask me why. So yeah, Just for the Summer has been a big book this summer. I've seen everybody reading it, everybody picking it up, so I want to join in on the fun and read it, even though I know it's not fun, because I know everybody cries. Maybe not everybody, but a lot of people cry. They also give it a 5 stars, so I'm super excited to read this one as well. We also have Beach Read by Emily Henry, which is super popular. Everybody knows Beach Read by Emily Henry, I think. Hopefully you do. But my best friend actually just read this, not Emma, Miley. She just read this and she loved it. She absolutely loved it. So I'm so excited to also pick this one up. And last but not least, we have, you're gonna be very surprised with me. I don't think you're gonna expect this, but we have City of Bones, which is the first book in the Mortal Instruments series by Cassandra Clare. Somebody DM'd me, I forgot who it was, and they told me that I needed to read this series. It was either this one or the this is Mortal Instruments. What's the other one? Oh, Infernal Devices. Someone told me to either read Mortal Instruments or The Infernal Devices, but I found out that the Mortal Instruments one comes first. So I picked it up. I read the back of it and I was hooked. So this is actually going to be the first book that I'm picking up, I think. Either this or Powerless I'm going to pick up first. First meaning probably now to go sit down and read it. But I'm so super excited to read this. It is so interesting. Mads actually told me that this is basically first Crescent City book, which is House of I think Earth and Blood, House of Earth and Blood is the first one, and she said it's so similar to this book that they're like the same thing, but obviously different. You know what I mean. But those are all the books on my TBR. Probably not gonna get to them all because, I mean, hello, and they're pretty thick books too, so I don't know. We're gonna hope for the best though. I also start school this month. I love the silence. Anyways, so that is going to be the end of today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun YouTube stuff, and I will see you in the next video.